Hi there. So a lot has changed since the last video. I moved, I went to a CSGO major, my friend got married, and I watched all of Game of Thrones. And some anime. But I'm back, and I can't wait to tell you about this volume because it's so freaking good. But first, let me give you a little recap on what happened previously. So last time we talked, Kirishima and Hajime were battling out for Emi's love in an intense game of Magic the Gathering where the winner got to keep her for themselves. But Kirishima absolutely destroyed Hajime game 1, and this was due to his Turbo Genius deck that beat him on turn 3. So this video is going to start in game 2 of that match, so let's get into it. In the middle of game 2, Hajime casts Migrum, a black enchantment that deals 2 damage to an opponent every time they discard a card. Now this card is a phenomenal card against the Turbo Genius strategy because not only does it stop all the wheels that Kirishima has, but it stunts his mind over matter, which is one of his most valuable cards. I mean, Migrum is so good against him, Kirishima recognizes the silver bullet instantly. Hajime goes to end his turn, but Kirishima activates Scroll Rack, exchanging that many cards from his hand with the top of his deck at the end step. Thinking for a moment, Kirishima comes to the conclusion that without access to cards like Capsize to bounce Migrum, he decides conceding the game is the best course of action. Hajime lets out a sigh of relief as Kirishima starts talking about the stakes of the match, but he thinks it's weird Hajime wants him to stop referring to himself as the one-winged angel. Hajime stands his ground though, saying there's nothing strange about it, as we get thrown into a flashback of both players starting their MTG journey. Hajime reads out that they will be considered sorcerers and decides that he needs a cool name, and after thinking for a bit, he sees a Final Fantasy guidebook and settles on Cloud. The flashback ends, and Hajime asks if Kirishima knows what he said after that, but Kirishima says he doesn't remember and wants to get to sideboarding. Both players think about the opponent's strategy and put their best hopes in their own respective cards as the game gets underway. Kirishima starts with an Island, Lotus Petal, Mox Diamond, and Scroll Rack. Hajime is sick of seeing the same start every game and arrests Kirishima's hand, seeing Power Sync and Time Spiral. Hajime snap picks Power Sync, which makes Kirishima believe that Hajime is still all in on the Migrum plan. Kirishima starts his turn not only by drawing Windfall, but also casting it, making both players discard their hand and then drawing cards for the most cards discarded. In this case, it'd be 6, and Hajime is sad to see that his duress was useless as Kirishima plays out Lotus Petal and Tolarian Academy. Hajime starts his second turn and casts Carnophage and plays a Wasteland. Now this card allows Hajime to destroy Tolarian Academy by sacrificing it, but when he goes to do that, Kirishima responds to the activation by tapping Academy for mana and then using it to cast Intuition. This card allows Kirishima to look through his deck for 3 cards, and then Hajime is allowed to pick one of them and the other 2 can go to the grave. Well, at least that's how it's supposed to be, but Kirishima pulls 3 more copies of Tolarian Academy out of his deck, giving Hajime no option. Both of Hajime's turns have basically been nullified by Kirishima's deck, and with Kirishima's turn 3 starting, this could be it. Kirishima starts with casting Voltaic Key, which is the promo of the volume, and then plays the new Tolarian Academy. He wastes no time tapping it and a few mana rocks for Time Spiral, shuffling both players' hands and graves into their decks, and then drawing a fresh hand of 7. Sounds almost like a good deal. However, Kirishima gets to untap some of his lands, including the Tolarian Academy. Hajime understands how important this turn is, but it looks like Kirishima doesn't have the mind over matter to start comboing, or even a counterspell to stop Hajime, so he wonders if it's better to start looking for those important pieces. But then he realizes Hajime only has 1 swamp, so he can't cast impactful cards like Hatred unless he also has 2 Dark Rituals in his hand. With this realization, Kirishima decides it's better to be proactive, and I'm going to do my best to try to explain Kirishima's turn because there's a lot going on. Kirishima starts off by casting Mana Vault, then he taps it for 3 mana, but immediately uses some of that mana to cast another Mana Vault. Then he taps the new Mana Vault for an additional 3 mana, but that's not all, because Kirishima activates the Voltaic Key by using 1 of the floating mana, untap the Mana Vault, and then re-taps it for an additional 3 mana. Kirishima then uses 4 of the floating mana to cast Jester's Cap, and then he uses 2 more to activate and sacrifice the Jester's Cap to take 3 cards out of Hajime's deck, those 3 cards being Hajime's copies of Migrum. Then to cap his turn off, Kirishima casts his second Mox Diamond and spends the remaining mana floating to scroll rack the 2 cards from his hand. He then casts a 3rd Lotus Petal and taps 9 blue mana to Stroke of Genius for 6 new cards. Kirishima stares down Capsize, Mind Over Matter, and another Stroke of Genius, ensuring his victory next turn. Hajime lets out a sigh of relief. Thinking he was a goner, he tells Kirishima that he was too focused on getting rid of Migrum. He then starts his turn with a Dark Ritual, giving him 3 black mana. Kirishima starts to look worried as he thinks Hajime might just have the second copy of Dark Ritual in his hand, but Hajime is crying out internally, saying that this one's for Emi as he plays his copy of City of Traders, the land that Emi traded him when they opened up the Exodus packs. This land gives Hajime enough mana to cast Hatred on his Carnophage and take game 3. Kirishima thinks over his actions of the last game, realizing that he was 1 turn away, but accepts his loss. Hajime asks if Kirishima is going to hold up his part of the deal, but then he interrupts Kirishima as he was talking about Emi, because he cares more that he won't call himself the One-Wing Angel. The flashback and Hajime reveal that his alias was actually Zack. Kirishima, looking even more defeated, admits it and gives Hajime back his membership card. And with that, Kirishima makes his way out of the classroom, saying that his girlfriend's waiting for him, exposing that all of this was some kind of test. Kirishima looks back at Hajime, telling him to take care of Emi and that he's rooting for them. Hajime decides it's time to leave as well, but as he's getting on the bike, Emi shows up with some balloons. They ride for a while, talking about cleaning up after the school festival, when Emi asks if they could stop really quick. They climb a fence, hike through the woods, and climb a water tower for an amazing view of the city. Emi says that it is a happy place for her. And after a while of thinking about how special this place is, Hajime decides that it should be the spot they should meet up if the world were to end. Both of our characters get a bit red in the face as an awkward silence lingers until Emi breaks it, asking if Hajime would pinky swear to make it official. And after some hesitation, they make the promise and start talking about the King of Terrors, what his CMC would be, and if he looks like the Sliver Queen. But in that moment, Hajime finally comes to terms that he likes Emi. This chapter was wow. I mean, we got some tight, close magic. We got an admission from Hajime that he actually likes Emi. I mean, what more could you want? And it seems like Kirishima did this all for Hajime, but I still don't know. I think there's something there. He might be a friend, he might be a foe. Let me know what you think. But let's get into the next one. Lost in thought about the moment he realized he liked Emi, Kirishima snaps Hajime back into reality, asking if he was thinking about her. Hajime tries to deny it, but is not very effective with him getting all flustered. Kirishima tries to egg on Hajime, saying that physical contact is the best way to get closer to an opposite gender, or at least that's what the book that his brother gave him says. Hajime tries to change the subject, saying he needs to study harder to beat Emi in the exams, but that just confirms that he was thinking about her. Kirishima uses this opportunity to let the guys know that he's going to be transferring schools after the sports festival that's coming up, so he won't be able to see Hajime finally beat her. This shocks all the guys and even Emi when Hajime tells her later on while they're biking to the card shop. Hajime takes the reaction as Emi potentially actually liking Kirishima, but he gets startled when Emi picks something off of his back. Playing it off like he was trying to work more muscles to prepare for the sports festival, Emi excitedly says that she's doing the mixed gender relay, but Hajime says he won't lose to her, but his mind is too busy thinking about what Kirishima said earlier about physical touch. When our characters finally do make it to the card shop, they're shocked to see what's happening. Gob is casting Fireball for 136 damage, as another player is casting Stroke of Genius to draw 30 cards. Every player seems to be playing some version of Turbo Genius. And we see some card names pop up, like High Tide and Pyroblast. We even get some magic lore, with this deck dominating so much at the time, people called it Combo Winter. Yuji Tori then brings us back, complaining about everyone playing blue and being a slave to the meta. Emi decides that it'd be fun to play a game of Block Constructor with Yuji, but when we see Yuji's deck, he's using cards like Earthcraft and Overgrowth in tandem with Workhorse, Thopter Squadron, and Recurring Nightmare to make infinite mana, making him no better than anyone else in the room. Hajime gets his shirt grabbed by Emi, wondering what card she should use to side. This makes Hajime fall onto the ground, and when asked what's up, Hajime says that he's feeling sick and doesn't want her to catch it. But feeling ashamed, he cracks open a binder, thinking if this is how he reacts now, how is he going to be the one to make contact? But I care more about the cards in the binder. Let's see what we have here. We have Turnabout, Pariah, Sarah Sanctum, Torch Song, Morphling. I'm pretty sure this is Cradle Guard, and with using all the context I have, I potentially got this card too. So all the other cards are from Stronghold, and there's only one 0 drop that could possibly be that, and that's Claws of Gix. Please subscribe for the effort that I'm putting in. But hey, now it's the day of the school festival, and it looks like Emi's mother is here to watch the race. Hajime, on the other hand, is of course playing magic, casting Urza's Armor and activating Pestilence just to get blown out by a Shatter. Hajime was trying out a new deck theme, but it gets cut short from the race getting announced. Hajime throws his deck to Kirishima, asking if he could hold on to it for him, as Kirishima wishes Hajime good luck. Next thing we know, the relay has started and Hajime and Emi are waiting for the baton to reach them. Hajime ends up getting distracted and Emi gets a head start, but he catches up to her right away, saying that it's all thanks to the biking with her that he's been doing. Just then, Hajime trips and wipes out, laying on the ground. But an unknown figure yells out, telling Hajime to keep fighting. Emi, still in the lead, starts to think about the day of the amusement park, Kurashima asking her what she thinks about Hajime. She gets all flustered, saying he's just an exam opponent, but Kurashima sees right through it and talks to her about how Hajime has been gaining on her in exams and thinks that one day he will pass her. And just then, we see Hajime gain the lead in the race. We don't get to see the rest of the race, but it looks like the festival is coming to a close, and the ending event is a dance. And it looks like Hajime is finally going to be the one to take initiative and ask Emi to dance. As they have fun, Emi's mother sees them, asking who Hajime is, as the mysterious person from earlier lets out a fat cloud, ending her complaining. Emi is also thinking about her and Kurashima's conversation again, and how he said he was jealous of Emi for being the only one that can make Hajime get serious about things, and how inspiring Hajime can be. Emi agreed then, and she agrees now in the moment. The next scene is Emi and Hajime showing Kurashima off at the train station, and Hajime gives Kurashima a parting gift in Morphling. The conversation gets cut quickly as the train draws near, but in some last parting words, Kurashima asks if they could meet next January at the Pro Tour Kyoto. Hajime agrees and then leaves the station. Emi asks Hajime if he wants to go to the card shop. He says yes, and she grabs him by the arm, dragging him as the chapter ends, and it says that a fierce battle is to come. This was a pretty short chapter, and both the chapters after are pretty short as well, but it's nice to see that Hajime and Kurashima are finally getting along, even though Kurashima's out of the picture, leaving to go to another school. But he finally made contact with Emi, and we have a Grand Prix to look forward to. So let's just get into the next chapter. Winter is here, and the gang is at the card shop playing a trivia game with cards flavor text. We get some references in Wildfire and Lorgoyf, but the game ends and we see Emi bummed out because she couldn't win the anthology gift box, which has a copy of Armageddon that she wants for her collection. Emi also notices that Hajime is filling something out. It turns out to be a postcard for the Kyoto event. Emi says that she should probably do the same because there's someone there that she wants to meet. Hajime wonders who it could be if it's not Kurashima, but just then, Yuji Tori interrupts angrily because one of the girls canceled for the party he was putting together. After some thought, he says that Emi should go, but Gob says that he shouldn't be asking a middle schooler to go to a mixer party. Yuji Tori says some stuff that makes him the worst character in this manga, but Emi decides that she'll go if Hajime can. And now we're at the mixer, and everybody's having a good time. But Hajime seems a bit out of the loop, so he decides to playtest his deck. Just then, this lady asks him what he's doing, not understanding that magic doesn't mean Hajime knows how to perform magic. We then get to see Emi's perspective, as she's pretty exhausted, and she looks at Hajime performing a basic magic trick, turning glasses of Urza into sunglasses of Urza. Just then, a game breaks out, and Hajime has to drink this gross kale drink. And when he's done, Emi tries to give him some of her normal drink, but the lady from earlier wipes his face, getting really close to Hajime. Now it's the lady's turn, and she asks who do you like the most to the player that has the number 7, which of course is Hajime. He sits there for a second, worried that Emi is going to dismiss him, so he nervously says that it's the lady in question. Emi ends up getting up and walking out. Hajime sees this, and the lady from earlier even says he should go after her. Emi, embarrassed by her action, is walking by when Hajime tries to stop and talk to her, but when he reaches out to grab Emi's hand, she swipes it away, saying that she's not feeling well and to leave her alone for the day. Hajime feels like he's thrown all progress he had with her away and heads back to the mixer. We see that since that day, Emi and Hajime haven't been talking. Emi even tries to tell Yakumo about it, but the conversation gets cut short as Emi has to take a bath. But it seems like Yakumo might also have feelings for Hajime too. We also get to see a form for the Kyoto Grand Prix. We then get to see Hajime's side of things as he is at the card shop doing a gift exchange, talking about how he can't get a hold of her and she's even avoiding the card shop now. But the manager says that it's time to open the gifts, and Hajime gets a figure that the manager had painted. But he overhears Yuji Tori saying that he got the anthology box. Hajime thinks back to Emi complaining she couldn't get the box earlier, and decides to approach Yuji Tori and offers a trade with the figure. Yuji Tori says no to the trade, and even brings up Nevinurl's disc. But Hajime starts to beg him, saying he has someone that he'd like to give it to. Yuji Tori understands what's happening, and tells Hajime that he will do the trade, but only if he can beat him in a game of magic. Hajime agrees agrees to these terms, and the match is underway. Yuji starts by playing City of Brass and casting Exploration, allowing him to play an additional land every turn. Just then, we get to see the boss talking to the manager about how Yuji got 20,000 yen out of him for playing against that deck, saying that playing the game conventionally won't work against that deck. We then go back to Hajime attacking with his creatures, but Yuji uses Respite to prevent all damage and gain some health back. This alerts Hajime that he's playing against Turbo Fog, as we get to see the board with a few lands, the City of Brass and Exploration we know about, Mox Diamond, Bottomless Pit, Howling Mind, and I'd have to imagine this is Null Brooch since it's the only Exodus card I could find that looks like this and works with Turbo Fog strategy. But Yuji starts his turn by drawing an extra card from Howling Mind and finds his Ensnaring Bridge. This makes it so Hajime can only attack with creatures with less power than the amount of cards in Yuji's hand, and right now, that's 0. Hajime seems to be in a pickle and the chapter comes to an end. They sure do like ending these chapters in the middle of games, but I mean, I'm ready to get into the next one. Let's see if he can get this box. In the very first panel, we see Hajime draws Hatred, which causes Yuji's 2 copies of Booby Trap to explode and deal 20 damage to Hajime, winning the first game. Hajime is impressed by Yuji's no hand strategy as we get another peek at Yuji's board. We have a bunch of repeats, but we do get to see Pine Barrens and Reflecting Pool. But it's time to reset and go on to game 2. We see Ito come over to check on the game as Hajime swings with multiple creatures like a Sarcomancy zombie token, Flesh Reaver, and Dothy Horror. But Yuji uses Maze of Shadows to stop one of the attacks. Hajime then uses his Duress to take a Bottomless Pit out of Yuji's hand, which is both good because Hajime doesn't have to deal with that card now, but it's also kind of bad because Yuji doesn't want cards in his hand. Yuji starts his turn and finds Ensnaring Bridge off of his extra cards from Howling Mine and plays it right away. Hajime sees Yuji still has 2 cards in his hand and still needs to figure out how to win next turn or he might be cooked. So on his turn, he attacks with the same team and a Black Knight, but Yuji plays Lull in response, preventing all damage for the turn. Frustrated, Hajime casts Bad Moon and passes the turn. Yuji starts by playing out both Curse Scroll and Grafted Skullcap, putting Hajime in the same spot he was in the first game. Even the onlookers think that it's very unlikely for Hajime to win. But Hajime laughs and looks up, saying Yuji's wrong about locking him out of the game, because his deck has become a whole new one after sideboarding, as he casts Necropotence. This skips Hajime's draw step, so Booby Trap will no longer affect him, and he can pay life to get cards at the end of his turn, which Hajime does immediately to draw 3 cards. This forces Yuji to start activating his Scroll Rack to deal small amounts of damage to Hajime, but that's all he can do. And when he gets back to Hajime, he uses Jinx Idol and sacrifices his Flesh Reaver to give it to Yuji. Problem is, between Jinx Idol and Curse Scroll, Yuji will run out of life first if they each take 2 every turn. Yuji takes his turn, Oppression by the way, but as the turns go by without Yuji finding an answer, he loses the game. Not only did Hajime win, but he showed that he's growing even more as a player, being able to sideboard into a completely different strategy. But that's all we get, because now it's December 24th and Emi's still bummed. She even decides not to go to the Christmas party at the school and goes to walk home, but she gets a phone call, and it's Ito. She said she was out shopping and wondered if Emi wanted to join her. We also see Hajime, embarrassed about doing something, but Yuji says to just do as he says. Back to Ito and Emi. Ito is buying a gift for the manager, and she asks if Emi had anyone that she wanted to buy a gift for. She thinks about Hajime, and when the shopping passes, we see Ito saying goodbye to Emi, leaving her all alone, surrounded by Christmas music and happy people. But all she can think about is how to apologize for what happened at the mixer, when somebody breaks her train of thought, calling out to her. And when she turns around, she immediately recognizes Hajime wearing an outfit. And I love the fact that he's wearing the outfit that Ito had on and the glasses and beard that the boss had on. It's just a nice touch. But she plays along as Santa Hajime reaches into his bag, saying that he has something for her. He pulls out the anthology box and tells her Merry Christmas, saying that it was from a young man. Emi is shocked by the gift, but after a bit of silence, Santa Hajime says that the young man doesn't have any other plans for a winter break, and then he excuses himself and starts to walk away. But Emi tells him to wait, saying she doesn't have anything going on either, and that the young man should get tea sometime with her. Santa Hajime says that he'll tell him, and he turns around to scamper off to the train station. But we need to wrap this chapter up at the card shop, where Gab and Yuji are frantically eating some curry, saying that the girls from the mixer ended up dumping them, as we see Hajime and Emi talking about the cards from the anthology box, like Hymn to Torok, and and swords to plowshares. Emi apologizes for how she acted, and Hajime forgives her, but he wants to know why she was so angry. Emi uses the box to cover her face, saying it's a secret. Hajime pries a bit more. Emi tells him that she's gonna treasure the cards in the box, so he should treasure her a little more. Hajime gets all red and then apologizes back. Meanwhile, it looks like Yakumo is at an event, and their round 3 pairings are up. But when they go to the table, they recognize the person waiting for them. Just then, Emi says that they should prepare for the Grand Prix, saying again that there's someone that she wants to meet there. And when Hajime asks who she's talking about, it cuts back to Yakumo as the game is about to start, and the guy puts down his book, glaring down at Yakumo. And Emi says that it's the person who taught her to play magic, as we see them put the book down and the chapter ends. Well, I am happy to see the Lovebirds back together, even if we didn't get to see the Turbo Fog Game 3. And can we talk about the wingman that all these people were for Hajime? I mean, they went out of their way. About every single one of them helped him. And I cannot wait for Yakumo to go up against the person that taught Emi how to play the game. Who is it? You think it's her dad? It might be her brother. Might be her brother, huh? You give him the given brother? And the book that he had was Prophecies of Notre Dame, which is tying back into the whole end of the world thing. So it's gonna get juicy. I think this next volume is gonna be crazy. If you wanna see that next volume, make sure to subscribe, stick around. Until then, I pass my turn.